Gather around your computer screens, mobile phones, tellies, or future technology of design unknown, for tonight, I am here to tell a tale. A tale of the legend of King Roland, and of his many exploits fighting for glory in the fabled arenas of Brawlhalla. When King Roland was simply a man, and not yet a legend, he had the most humble of beginnings. Born to parents slain in a forgotten war, fighting in the Forgotten Kingdoms, he grew up on the streets of a bustling medieval town. When he was 8, he stopped stealing food and began planting it instead, finding work as a farmhand for one of the barony's landowners. As he grew, so did his skills as a farmer, and as such his strength. Wrestling with oxen to plow the fields, breaking wild horses to pull the wagons to market, and harvesting wheat each season made him strong. As a young man, he wore a handsome smile that made all but the most black-hearted smile in response. And he spoke ill of no man, being a friend to all he met. And as he grew, so too did his majestic beard. So finely kept was his beard that barons and dukes began to invite him to great balls and galas of all kinds, as to brag upon the manliness of such a beard within their realms. And stories of Roland's majestic and finely kept beard eventually traveled to the halls of the king. The king demanded the presence of Roland in his court, and upon seeing him fell to his knees in tears and said to him, "Son, you must take my crown and lead this land, for a man with a beard so kingly rightfully deserves this throne more so than I." When Roland was king, he was loved by his people. He married a glorious woman who was wise queen to the land, and together they raised children that scampered about the castle, bringing joy and all to the court. Life was grand for some time for King Roland, his family, his kingdom, and of course, his majestic beard. Neighboring kingdoms, however, were jealous of his reign. They were jealous of his happiness, his riches, his castle, his lands, and of course his brilliant beard. Neighboring lands began to plot against him, and through a combination of alchemy, science, and the dark magic sent a machination of evil against him. Roland, of course, picked up a sword and slew it in one blow. But the Forgotten Kingdoms would not stand for this, and soon the entire continent was at war. The war was long, and Roland grew old. He saw his wife wither away and die of war-borne disease, his oldest son slain in battle before his very eyes, and countless tens of thousands of men dying on bloody battlefields. But Roland would not give up. He would not quit. He would fight on for the happiness and safety of his people. No, of all peoples in all lands across all kingdoms. After the 20 Years' War, Roland and his valiant army finally had won. The day after victory was declared, he gave his second oldest son, the one who had lived, his sword. He gave him his crown and his best advice for maintaining a magnificent beard. Then he laid to rest in his chambers and died peacefully in his sleep, knowing now that his kingdom would be safe. But when Roland opened his eyes, he found himself wearing his familiar suit of armor once again. He looked down and saw the hands he recognized from when he was a young man, and the strength he had felt before the 20 Years' War had worn away his spirit. Roland was no longer the king of the Forgotten Kingdoms. Now, he was a legend destined now to fight in the arenas of the fabled Brawlhalla. Roland made his way to a nearby temple, but before he had known or been told of what was to be expected of him, he was beset by two foes. One with a long spear and the look of a sorceress, and a grinning man with midnight skin wielding a pair of wicked blades in each hand. He did not recognize them, but 20 years of war had taught him to recognize an enemy when he saw one. Before Roland could speak, the two cowards beset upon him. Roland fought them back as valiantly as he could. They were not like normal foes. They fought with poise, and their own determination to achieve victory could be seen, glinting like steel in their eyes. In the Forgotten Kingdoms, King Roland fought to protect his people, his family, and his lands. Here, he was not yet sure what he was fighting for except his very life. Fighting for glory didn't make sense to the noble king, so instead he fought for the memories of the kingdom he had left behind for this afterlife of battle and combat. Before he could help himself, in the midst of the battle, he flashed a grin, flourished his sword, and fought back with all his strength. Perhaps this land, this place, this world also needs a good king. And that, my faithful listeners, is the legend of King Roland.